What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest is responsible for guiding the design of all North American projects for the Canopy, Tempo, and Motto brands at Hilton. He's an innovative industry leader. He has a fabulous eye for interior design. He is the Senior Director of Lifestyle at Hilton Worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Sullivan. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's nice to be with you.
It's so good to be you, to be with you. Yeah, to be you. Oh, if I could be you, Barry. It's so wonderful.
Careful what you ask for.
Well, one of the things I like to do at the beginning of these conversations with people that I have a longer, kind of more circuitous personal relationship with is kind of give a little background there. And I think I first met you, it must have been in 1999 or 2000. I was working for Steve Higgins. You were working with Mark Norcross, helping do on the design coordination with Mark David Furniture, correct? I don't remember exactly what the title
I think we met with Steve, didn't you come to Jim Northcutt's office?
I could have come to.
I think that's the first time I remember meeting Steve. And I think that might have been, you might have.
I think I could have been with him, but you know what's funny is everyone remembers the first time they met Steve Higgins. May he rest in peace. But he's a really special influence in my life, and I think for the industry as a whole. But that was a very brief encounter. But the real magical part of it, and I think it ties into the larger conversation that we'll have about hospitality, is I lived in this magical place under the Hollywood sign in Beechwood Canyon on Beechwood Avenue. And my wife and I lived there with our dog Herbie, and it was this magical kind of compound where apparently Linda Ronstadt recorded an album in one of the rooms of the apartment we lived in. There was just like this really great energy. I think Harry Dean Stanton had his name carved into the sidewalk out front. But
Kevin Bacon lived there for a while.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So wait, I can be connected to Kevin Bacon by one step now?
No, he can be connected to you now.
Yeah, great. Oh, thank you for flipping that one. It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
But the reason why, there was it was just a very magical place. And I think a lot of it had to do with the woman that owned the compound. Her name is Ida Hallinan. And I don't know for all the people out there that ever read or saw Amistad Maupin's Tales of the City. I think it was Tales of the City.
Yep, that's right.
There was this one character, Mrs. Madrigal, who was like the kind of glue that bound everyone together in her building that she rented out to like really like just wayward souls and just a whole bunch of different people. And she was kind of the thread that pulled them all together. And I see Ida was very much like that, and still is. And she actually grew up there. I think she lived there from when she was 5 years old and onward. But a couple of years after we moved out, I think Alexa and I had moved to New York City, and then she reached out to me. She's like, "Oh my gosh, Dan, I think you really need to meet someone who used to live here, and he's just the most wonderful man. And I think he's working at a big hotel company. I don't remember what it's called. His name is Barry Sullivan." And I said, "Oh my God, I think I know him." But I guess the amazing thing is we both lived in this incredible magical compound at two very different times. But I feel like in some way, Ida has connected us as the Mrs. Madrigal.
Yeah.
And I don't know. And I think that's why we have kind of such an affinity for each other and such like a deeper connection in what we do and why we do what we do.
It took you past the job description of just being a rep. We had something in common to talk about and shared experiences living in California and that part of Hollywood. which was, and I'm sure is still pretty special, even though it's changed over the time. So, yeah, that's where you jump from purely business to business and personal.
Personal with magic, because again, I think Ida is like this magical human, and now I feel so terrible for not having reached out to her for a couple of years, and now I'm going to do that as soon as we hang up. But I don't know, I just feel like so much of it, what we do is like why we're drawn to it. And I think a lot of what draws me to all these conversations, and even just the work that in my vocation of providing furniture to hotels, it's not about the furniture or the industry that we're in. It's almost as if it's a vehicle for me to make others feel cared for and taken care of. And I think I could apply that to anything. It just happens to be that this is the vehicle. But if you were to think about your experience living at 2595 North Beechwood Avenue.
No secrets now. Everybody knows where it is, right?
I know, it's very secret. You can go find Harry Dean Stanton's name and the sidewalk out front. But like, if you were to go back there, you know, and think about Ida, and as magical as she is, like, how did that in any way influence your journey to where you are now?
Well, what was interesting about my time there, because it was a summer after I had left Los Angeles, had moved to North Carolina, had the opportunity to go back and work for Wimberley for a summer, freelancing for them. And that's where I ended up staying. And so it was not only a full circle of going to school in LA, working there for a long time, leaving, going to North Carolina, and then coming back, that really made that so important. And then that part of Hollywood was so interesting. And it's almost a city within a city kind of thing, because it's remote, but underneath the Hollywood sign. So everybody knows where it is. They don't always know how to get there. So I think for me, and then when I stayed there, I stayed in, I think, 3 or 4 different apartments because I was there for so long. I had to keep moving around. So I got a sense of different locales, and it was a really interesting experience to have over a long period of time, because it's a quiet little enclave in a big, huge city. So I'm not sure if I answered your question or not, but
so in a way you did, because let's pull on this thread. I went to USC. I lived in LA after I moved up to San Francisco, then came back to LA, lived in West Hollywood with Alexa. And then we were looking for a new place to live. I think they sold the house we were renting, and I think they tore it down and built condos. But then we were looking, and she found this place. She's always searching, but she found this place in Beechwood Canyon. And having lived in LA for 6 or 7 years at that point, I'd actually never even heard of it. It was like this little special moment. Topographically, energy, sun, everything. I mean, there's a horse stable all the way at the top of it, which is just crazy to me. I started running there. It was just a very pivotal place in my life. So I don't know, I just feel very drawn to it, and drawn to other people's that find the magic.
Yeah.
In
well,
that.
It's also a very lifestyle neighborhood within a big city. And so we could pull on that thread if you want, but
yes,
that whole neighborhood up there, from its inception to the entree of Hollywood Land before the land fell off the sign, and the housing development up there. But I think the people that lived with Ida were indicative of everybody who lived in that neighborhood. And so from a lifestyle perspective, they were people that had some things in common, but they were the non-typical people of the time. They were musicians, they were artists, they were performers, whatever there is. There's a couple of theaters down on Hollywood that people could walk to, and so it really developed as many of the neighborhoods in LA did, as a community and a lifestyle community. But because of its geography, with only one street in and everything that you can get to from there, it really was a little enclave.
It was.
That's what I
And
appreciated about it, that it was a little town in a big city.
it absolutely was. And there was even just up the road from us, I don't know, 200 yards, there was a little teeny market, which was amazing, a little diner. And I think like, and then I just, you know, and running up to the top of the hill to start running up in those fire trails and full of coyotes and everything, I'd always just see regular people and a ton of celebrities driving down. It was like a really magical place. And I think from a lifestyle perspective, which is, I'm glad you're pulling on that thread. It does have everything kind of contained in there in this very unique spot, but it's not, but it has people from all different walks of life around it. So I think that is pretty amazing. And then to think about that as a lifestyle influence for you, going one step further from lifestyle and now all the work that you're doing at Hilton, how do you think that that helps shape what your definition of hospitality is?
Well, it certainly helped define the definition of lifestyle, because when I started with Hilton and the Canopy, which was the first lifestyle brand, was introduced, my first question is, well, what does lifestyle mean? What does it mean to the brand? And so I think the reference point of living in LA and having that experience in Beechwood, but West Hollywood, whatever it is, there's so much nuance to living in LA that is specific to a neighborhood. And the thing I hear from people who go there and have never been there before is like, well, it's just one big city, and how do you understand what's going on or anything about it? But you know as well as I do, when you've lived there for a while, you know where one neighborhood starts and another one stops, even though it might be along the same street. But you know that there's some divisions, and you recognize that after being there for a long time, that okay, this part of Sunset Boulevard has its own qualities, and as soon as you pass X Street, it turns into another set of qualities. So I think the recognizing that even in a big city like LA, there are people who gravitate to certain aspects of life that are important to them, that resonates with it, whether it's Beechwood, whether it's the beach and living in Santa Monica or any of the beach communities. People end up there because they feel comfortable. And we talked about it a little bit earlier about that's what hospitality is making people feel comfortable. Or my definition is making them feel comfortable, welcome, and warm in an environment that's not their own. And I think pulling those aspects out of where you live and looking for it where you go and travel to is I think what a lot of us do when we go to a new city is, gee, I got to find a good coffee shop, or where can I go to good pastry? Things that you do at home, you want to find, not necessarily find the same thing, but the version of that in whatever city you be happening to visit. And so I think pulling those nuances out of what makes lifestyle important to a specific traveler is really important.
I always said that LA is a really difficult, I think I may have even said horrible place to visit, but it's a tremendously incredible and vibrant place to live, because there are so many pockets and topographies and mountains and oceans and skiing and you know, just there's everything, and just all the history of Hollywood, and I don't know, it's a really incredible place to live. And I love that you bring up Canopy, because I did want to get there. And Canopy being the first lifestyle brand that Hilton has done, it also, you know, it started to launch and kind of get some momentum before the pandemic, but really in earnest, I remember the glimmer of hope for me that our industry was all going to be okay was the velocity at which, I don't know how many Canopies opened during the pandemic, but it was just, it helped me to kind of keep calm, carry on, because there were so many that just happened. And they've been, I think from everything I've been reading, they've been outperforming in an amazing way.
Yeah, they have. So we have about 33 hotels worldwide. 26 of them are in the States. And when Gary Steffen was the head of the brand up until a year or two ago, his big mantra in 2019 was 20 canopies in 2020. That was our thing, 20 and 20. And of course, that did happen, but it happened virtually and remotely. I didn't visit one of those 20 hotels that we opened in 20. So it was a little bit bittersweet because I started with the company in January of 15 when we had 2 hotels in the pipeline. And so the work that 4 or 5 years of work or whatever it took to get those hotels to a point of opening, it was very saddening to not be able to go to those. Mm-hmm. And not only not be able to go, but also to figure out how do you do a model room and how do you do a hotel opening, which we normally go and walk through. And 2 weeks before they're opening, you're kicking the tires and looking under the hood of everything. And to not be able to do that was disappointing, but it made us quickly try and figure out how we can do this, because hotels, they needed to open. It was just a part of what the normal process. At that point, a lot of lenders said, no, if the hotel's open, if the hotel's done, you got to open. Not every hotel had the ability to say, well, we're going to wait another 3 months until we think the market is better. Some lenders really said, no, you got to be open. So we had to quickly figure out how to do that with something that we were always used to doing in person. So.
And have you heard from other people that just the rapidity by which canopies were opening, that it also helped reassure them that everything was going to be okay? Or am I kind of a freakish alone opinion in that?
No, I think so. I think it was it was the buildup. I think up until then in 19, we might have had 4 or 5 hotels open. But the majority of what we had been working on that represented before they opened, the bandwidth of what the brand represented and how different a hotel in Grand Rapids could be from a hotel in Boston, but they could still be part of the same brand. That was what we had been working on so hard, to have a common thread that represented a level of service and a level of design and a level of localization and being hyper neighborhood. When all of that existed on paper, it took the right developer to say, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I want to be a part of that. Because when you can't go and walk somebody through an existing hotel and say, well, this is what we're going to build, and you can do it how you want as long as you keep these key pillars. We didn't have that availability because we had only a few hotels, and as I said, it was the brand existed mostly on paper. So 20 was really a watershed event, because it really just threw so many hotels into the pipeline, opened in the pipeline, that people finally understood. And if you go to our website now and look at the variety of designs and new construction versus adaptive reuse and the variety of hotels that came out of the last 7-8 years, it's for me is pretty startling and amazing. It's been immensely fun to be a part of that whole process, and especially at Hilton, when we weren't necessarily duplicating something that already existed. We were really venturing into new territory.
Well, that's actually really surprising to me. And again, as a hospitality, I find myself, rather than more of an expert, although I'm an expert in what I do, I find myself to be more a fan of our industry. So I might not know all of the details, but I know the good stuff when I see it. But I'm also really surprised. I didn't realize that was Hilton's first independent brand.
Well, I don't mean independent brand, but it was,
I mean lifestyle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was Hilton's first lifestyle brand.
It was, and then shortly after that, the Lifestyle Collections brand. So it was followed, I think, in 17 or 18. We launched in 14, late 14, early 15. I think it was in 17 or 18 we launched Curio, which was a collection brand, but still lifestyle. And then a few years after that, it was Tapestry, which was also a lifestyle brand, but those were collections and they were soft brands. And it was a different path to market than Canopy was, which was a hard brand. And so that was the big distinction, because we had more guardrails around what the brand wanted to be, with lots of flexibility within that. But it did have a pretty set list of parameters that were the objectives for the new build and for the.
And then just to clarify for the listeners that don't know, a soft brand, and again, please correct me because I'll probably misspeak here, but a soft brand is a hotel that could kind of be whatever it wants to be, but then would operationally and through reservations and training team, all that kind of other infrastructure that people might not experience or understand, that would all fall under the flag of one of the larger brands. And then you would have a soft brand so it's kind of like a lot more flexible. And then with the lifestyle brand of Curio, it's a hard brand, even though it is lifestyle. And some people, and it's interesting because even though it's lifestyle and it's a hard brand, which means the brand of Hilton has a lot of say in what it is, it still kind of bridges the gap between this soft brand and a really hard flag brand, because it just also seems like everyone is unique to the place where it is. So I'm just trying to envision a Venn diagram of like boutique, lifestyle, and independent, and it kind of, and I guess you throw brand in there, and I guess that's that rarefied real estate where Canopy probably lives, right? I don't know very many that have checked all those boxes with such kind of focus.
Yeah, well, the soft brands or the collection brands do have much more flexibility in what they can be, and we're a little less stringent on every aspect of the guest room. It's more about that the hotel's name and presence in whatever city they are takes precedence over Hilton. So if you go to a Curio or a Tapestry, you won't, the association to that soft brand is very light. And you could walk in the front door and wouldn't even know that you were in a Hilton property until you get to the front desk and it says Hilton Honors. That's the extent of it. There's not much on the outside of the building. That association lives mostly online. Their online presence is, they find it because they come to book our hotels and they're an honors member or whatever it happens to be. And that's the benefit to the owners, is that they can maintain that alleged or perceived autonomy, but then they have the benefit of hooking on to our engine and getting reservations, but they can still maintain the appearance that there really are a single branded, unique hotel within an environment. Not that it's downplayed, but it's for those hotels. And originally, the collection brands were for hotels that might be a single property and a well-known, the Del Coronado, and for instance in San Diego is a Curio. It's still the Del Coronado. It didn't change to Curio Del Coronado, and the affiliation with Curio is very it's 2 or 3 times removed when you come on property, but you still know it as the Del Coronado. Whereas our canopies are all known by, they all have Canopy, the name on the hotel.
So I'm also curious, as far as this being Hilton's first lifestyle brand, hard brand that is lifestyle. You have so many road warriors and raving fans, each flag, whether it's Marriott, Hilton, Intercon, like you have these people that are kind of bound by the frequent traveler rewards program or whatever that is. But they're unwavering, those raving fans. Like, I'm a Hilton guy, this is what I want, and I will stay only at Hilton's for whatever reason, but they're in there. I'm curious, what kind of feedback are you getting from those kind of I'm probably using the wrong words, but the raving Hilton fans who experience a Canopy for the first time?
It depends on how familiar they are with the brand. Of course, anytime something new comes out within a company, whether it's an airline that's got a new route going somewhere, or it's somebody like Hilton that we've opened a new hotel, the nuances of why someone may want to stay at a Canopy versus a Curio versus a Hilton or a DoubleTree are sometimes they don't go 7 layers deep and learn a lot about the brand. Most times it's about the location, so that's usually the primary driving factor. I will say that one of our Hilton, the Canopy in Portland, Oregon opened, and one of our big initiatives was to do away with water bottles. So as a Hilton Honors member, you check in, you get 2 bottles of water. Well, part of the sustainability efforts and things, our efforts was to put a water, filtered water and ice dispenser on every floor, and put a carafe, a bottle in the room that you would then go and fill up. This was even before people traveled with water bottles as much as they do now. I did hear from the general manager there, a couple checked in, and they wanted their water bottles, and when they checked in, they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have them. We have filtered water on the floor." And they weren't irate, but it was that they were a little bit taken aback that here I am at a Hilton, and I'm not. They didn't understand why, some of the nuances of what Canopy represented and why, and why it was important to the people that we identify that were going to resonate with this lifestyle brand. I mean, lifestyle, you can have as many different definitions of it as you talk to people, and that's why we've then launched Motto and Tempo. They are also lifestyle brands, but they, from our standpoint, we're catering to a different audience. And those brands are geared to that. So on the rare occasion that somebody might, somebody who's used to a Hilton or a DoubleTree checks into a Motto, or they may not necessarily be expecting it. So we sometimes have to do some education on property, or we do our best in our marketing things is to really be clear about who our intended audience is. It's not to say that it can't be to anybody, but because lifestyle at a Canopy or a Tempo or Motto, it's about your frame of mind. You can be 70 years old and stay at a Motto if you're in that mindset. It's the same thing with any of our brands. As long as you resonate with what the brand represents, it's not an age thing. And I think initially when lifestyle was launched, it was said, "Oh, well, you're going after millennials." Well, no, they're not the only people that would stay at our hotel. And Gary Steffen famously joked when he was the head of the brand, he said, "Well, I'm a 50-year-old millennial. This is the kind of hotel I want to stay at. And I may not be in the age group, but I'm in the mindset." And so therein lied a lot of where our work had to be done.
Oh, I love that. And I love that. I love what Gary said there, because I feel like I'm a 46-year-old millennial. My only caveat to that is, in most of the rooms that are designed for the millennial traveler, there's not a really great work surface, because everyone wants to like work from bed or work on a little window seat or something like that. So that's the one caveat that for me personally, that might make me a little less than 100% millennial.
I think that pendulum has swung both ways on that subject. There was, I think part of what you identified is that, oh yeah, millennials, they don't work at a desk, and so some people took desks completely out, and then you get people who say, "Well, where's my desk?" So the pendulum has kind of swung back. We never really went that far as stripping things out. Motto, which is a very small, compact room, does not have a desk, but it has a work surface, so that if you choose not to work in bed and you want to pull up to at least some sort of work surface, it's not a 20-inch depth desk, but it's a work surface, so that we try and accommodate as many different attitudes to traveling and routines as we possibly can.
I love that. Yeah, and I don't necessarily mean that I need a desk, but a work surface that is not cocktail height, because I'd like to.
Right.
I just like, my posture is bad enough that I don't need to be hunched over a little cocktail table working in a lobby somewhere. Just give me something that's a little bit higher. But that's just me. Yeah. We digress. So, on your journey to where you are right now, at Hilton, where did you find your passion and love for hotels?
So I didn't realize you went to USC. So did I. So see, this is we just learned something about each other. So how long have we known each other, and we didn't even connect that dot?
Oh my God, I had no idea.
So I went to USC, got a degree in architecture. But the architecture school at that time was going through a lot of reworking, and it ended up not being a great educational experience. I mean, I learned a lot, but the department was trying to figure out what it wanted to be and how it wanted to teach. So when I graduated,
let me pause you there for just 1 second, because I started off as architecture there, but then I was also on the rowing team. And then after a couple of all-nighters in the architectural studio, and then I'd have to get up at 4:30 to go pull on oak oars. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do both. So I wound up switching out of that. But that's how I came back to design, because I kind of regretted switching to literature because I was rowing and not staying into architecture. So that's kind of how I found my way back. But I didn't know we were both Trojans. Fight on. Now we're in the Big Ten. Oh, now you and I will be able to really kind of pester Larry Traxler on Ohio State now, because he's a big Ohio State fan, and now we're going to be playing them at least once every year. So I do see some.
Okay,
nice
I'll let you do that
ribbing
for me, seeing that I report to him. I don't want to really get on his bad side. So I'll let you do the football side for me. All right. And I'll energetically support you, but I'll let you dive in the deep end.
Perfect. I'll just say it from Barry and I. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. I'll take you out of it. So, Buckeyes aside, keep
so when I graduated, the idea of working in an architecture firm was pretty unappealing. So I did something else for a couple of years, and then got back into it and worked for what was then Sue Firestone's smaller company called Design One.
Yeah.
And at that time, they were just in the early stages of starting to do hotel, but a lot of it was retirement homes and senior living and things. And I worked there for about a year. And then an opportunity came up at James Northcutt Associates, which people may recognize the name, maybe not. But Jim was probably the most influential person in my design career at that time, because it was then that I realized there was a way to connect architecture with interiors. Up until then, it always felt like interiors was decorating, and I didn't understand how thoughtful and how important someone who did interior architecture was to a project, and not just the architecture, but the selection of materials and all of that, all of the backgrounds into which the furniture and all of those other things go into. And I can mention several of Jim's projects that if you go to today, that even though they've been open for 30, maybe 40 years, the architectural backgrounds have not been changed. It's the furnishings that have gone in to keep the projects current from a design standpoint. But so and understanding the scale of those things and proportions and how you move through a space devoid of any of the furnishings. It's just the built environment. That's where I really understood how those two things could come together as a profession, as opposed to being two separate entities. And
Wow.
so that was really eye-opening for me. Worked on a lot of great projects. I did have the opportunity, because of Jim's work at the in Beverly Hills. We ended up doing a palace in Saudi Arabia for a very young prince and princess. And at that time, most of the work being done in Saudi Arabia for people in the royal family was lots of gold, lots of reproductions of French and English antiques, and the fussier the better. Well, she was 29 years old and didn't want any of that, and really resonated with a different aesthetic. And we took over that project while it was under construction. And most of the things we did early on, because it was still under construction, was changing door width, door heights, moldings, because as you look down these long corridors, no offense to architects, but there wasn't, they hadn't taken it to the next level to understand that your view down the corridor gets all interrupted, and arches aren't at the same spring point, and all of these small things that we concentrated on that time really came full center, and really understood that it's more than just where the four walls are and what are you standing on, but how all of those aspects come together in a kind of cohesive design.
And when you took over that palace project midstream, were you allowed to make tremendous architectural changes up to that point?
Yeah, they were. She was really quite astute as a very young client. She really understood what we were trying to do, and I walked on site and would mark with chalk, oh, I need an electrical outlet here, or I need a J box for a Scotch. And I come back the next day and they had chipped out. So this was a concrete building that was built, and they would just chip it out. The client really wanted it done correctly. So it was easy to do, and it was not at all cumbersome to the project, which is probably rare in a lot of cases. But it also spoke to why you look at all of those things ahead of time and you put them in the drawings, which is what Jim always did. Is they're always part of that. Is everything was detailed and measured, and all of those references were already put in. This was just an opportunity to try and correct things that were had been designed around a different direction, and now we were trying to kind of unify it and clean up things.
Wow. So working for Jim just opened your eyes to all of the possibilities and the importance of what the interiors are. And then how did your evolution from experiencing Jim and his vision kind of evolve to where you are now?
So at that point, I do want to give credit, because the design director at Jim's office when I started was Daryl Schmidt. And so I worked, so Daryl worked closely with Jim and I worked closely with Daryl. There was and so there was that great working relationship, and Daryl was unique in the same way that those were all, that's part of why he was hired, and Jim hired him, because he had the same sensibility and architectural background, but also really well versed in design. So I learned a lot of that from Jim through Daryl. And then when Jim passed away and our offices were combined with Trish Wilson's, and then Daryl left after a few years and went off on his own, and I worked with him there. So it was that approach to design that was so important to me, and that I really got so much out of. And Daryl was very much of this. I don't want to say they were Jim and Daryl were the same, but they had different perspectives that reached the same goal. And I really learned an enormous amount from Daryl also. And I think what was good about both of those experiences, they were also small offices. I have this unofficial theory that private practice is successful up until about somewhere between 12 and 18 employees. And then if it's your company and you get to a certain size, then if design is your passion, you're no longer doing design, you're worried about where's the next project coming from. You've got HR stuff, you've got all these other things that are about running a business. And sometimes that kind of sidetracks the intimacy that you have, that an owner or anybody has with the principal, because they can focus on them. And so that's why that was part of the reason, also because I've known Daryl for so long, that I went to work with him when he started his own company. And then we ended up, and that also was an opportunity to work with some of the clients that had been Jim's prior, that had gone away during the merger and then had resurfaced. So, but even the experience with Tricia when the two companies were merged, she was really, really good friends with Jim. And that's why that whole partnership came about when Jim passed away. And that was my big, I would say that's probably the closest I came to working for a company like Hilton that's so big. When the two offices, when the Wilson office merged with the Northcutt office, I think we had upwards of 60 people almost overnight. And we moved into Wilson's office, and there was people drafting in the corridors and stuff. It was just, it was so, and both offices had so much work going on, but that was an opportunity to really experience design kind of pedal to the metal with projects in Las Vegas and in China and in Europe. There were just so many of them. It was an eye-opening experience.
And after that merger happened, did you interact with Tricia a lot or a little, or did you guys cross paths?
She would, no, it was more of an autonomous. She would come to town occasionally. And it's funny, some of the people that I worked with at Wilson, I'm now working with at other, Margaret McMahon was there at the time. So now I'm with her at Wimberley when we're working on projects. So that was nice about it also, because it introduced me to so many people that have now gone in different directions, but I still remain connected to. Anyway, it was a really great experience. So I saw Tricia occasionally. She would, a couple of times a year or whatever would come, and she was really delightful. I really loved meeting her, and she was so nice.
She's so inspiring, and just kind of what she built, and just the amount of people that she's impacted in this kind of diaspora of everyone that kind of came up under her and went on to do all these other great things, you included. The list is immense. It's just unreal. I'm just a huge fan. I've only met her a couple times, but I'd love to have her on at some point. Going back to the 12 to 18 magic number for a design firm before it, you kind of have to scale and the organization just changes. It's interesting you say that, because I won't name names, but I was recently speaking to a friend / client who has a design firm, and they're like, yeah, we don't want to get more than 12 people. And I'm like, 12, wow, that's a very specific number. And he didn't really say exactly why, but I'm sure it's about all of that stuff. And it reminds me of a book I once read called, what is it called? Little Giants, where there's so many businesses, and there's so many businesses that just make the decision to stay small, so that, and this one book, it goes into just Annie DeFranco, the recording artist. She's from Buffalo. She just wanted to keep her recording studio and her production company super small and in Buffalo. And so they use that as a case study. There's countless other ones, but it's interesting how so many of, just like I call them, the business porn books, where it's about like grow and scale and this and that, where it's really, how do you really find that balance of being able to be that special 12 to 18 person, I don't know, like incubator, to just something that's so much more massive. And I guess, hey, whatever path anyone chooses, it's all good. But I feel like there's so much pressure on everyone in business to kind of just scale and get huge, where I think it's reassuring to hear that, that 12 to 18 number. And I think I think a lot of people listening to this will, I know it will make them think differently as they're on their entrepreneurial career path. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to say something else?
No, that's yeah. I was going to say that I think it depends on how passionate you are about your business and how much of that passion you need to maintain during that. So if it is being an artist or whatever it is, and it's and you're a designer and you want to remain involved enough in those projects to be able to direct and guide and understand where a project is going, versus we just need to bring in more business and there'll be a general overview by somebody in the company to make sure that things are kind of going in the right direction. It really depends on what kind of ownership and involvement and how much involvement you want through the project. And of course, in a business like ours, building a hotel, you're signing up for 3 or 4 years to be with something. And so it's a long-term investment. And I don't think people that I've worked for and when I've done stuff, I don't want to get to the point where I start something and then somebody else finishes it and you're only in bits and pieces. The involvement from start to finish. And I think that's what's been unique for me at Canopy, is that because they were up until recently all new builds, they are a start to finish. And so you're dealing with the owner when they sign their agreement on day one, and then all of the drawings and submittals and meetings that have to go through to get a set of construction drawings. And then during the construction process, that whole thing is you're marrying somebody for 4 or 5 years, or if not longer. That's if everything runs on schedule. Things like the pandemic, we had projects that came to a screeching halt, and now they're restarting. So what was a 3-year project is already a 5-year project because we've lost the last 2 years. So it's that I find really rewarding, is to have that start to finish. And I'm sure that's where most of the people listening to this are where their heart lies also, is to start with, for lack of a better word, a blank piece of paper. You get a new project. You have to learn about the city. You have to learn about the owners. You have to learn about all of the nuances that go into it. And then you're creating something specific for that project and everything that leads up to all of the things that have to happen before the front door is open. That's what I find is really rewarding. And so I've been fortunate in that step that we haven't done. Well, I shouldn't say that, where I'm just getting to the point now where some of our hotels are old enough that we'll be doing renovations, but to have that experience of a start to finish project is really quite unique and really really challenging, but it's also really fun for me.
Yeah, I think to being able to see the full cycle from start to finish, it's very rewarding. And typically, unless something really weird happens, you're always working with the same team. And that continuity is very important. I wanted to also just, create some boundaries on like the small to big, right? So you have these smaller companies out there, right, that they do a fine job. So then they scale. Everything is, it could be great. It might not be great. Sometimes some of the magic changes. But I wanted to flip that back into your Hilton experience, because I keep reading, like every year, Hilton gets ranked as one of the best places to work consistently. And Hilton has just been growing and growing and growing since they went public. Like, what do you think what do you think that magic is that helps that happen? Because I know it's not just they get a stamp. A lot of work goes into that and it's all verified. Like, from your experience, what makes it such a great place to work? And how? What makes it great and how does it achieve that on a continuous basis?
Well, I think like in anything, it has to start at the top. And Chris Nocetta, aside from being a very personable, easy person to talk with, he is always engaged with team members. And when I was in the office up until the pandemic, I happened to be on the same floor with him. He would wander through to the different departments on the 11th floor, just say hi to people. I mean, it never started out as what I would consider a corporate office or what I thought a corporate office would be. So that was initially my first, I think during the onboarding of the first day you go there. Hilton is a first name company. You call people by their first name. There's no Mr. Nocetta or things like that if you're working there. So that permeates down through. And so it does feel like a family, and it feels that there's a lot of concern about making people feel warm, welcome, and comfortable in their non-home environment. It's really the definition of hospitality. So that is our mantra, and of course Conrad Hilton's objectives 105 years ago of filling the world with the warmth and light of hospitality is where that started. And I've, having worked at other companies, I recognize all of the things that Hilton does to make work life and life outside of work as nice as possible. There's some of the older folks at Hilton who have worked other places that we often talk about how people who come in for internships and then get jobs here, get a job at Hilton, and they go somewhere else. And we often hear, God, I didn't know how good it was until I left. You go somewhere else and you don't realize that that environment is not something that happens organically. It really there has to be a thought behind it. And I really do believe that that's what higher ups at Hilton are always concentrating on, is what can we do to make people enjoy working here. There was it costs and this I'm not saying that this is the reason they do it, but it certainly does figure into it. There's an enormous amount of investment that any company makes when somebody comes on board to get them up to speed, to get them into a productive work environment. And when somebody like that leaves and you have to start all over, not only is there that gap of time where that curve you have to rebuild up, but there's a monetary thing to it as well. It was a great story that I was at an owners conference a couple of years ago when it was in Dallas, and they were talking about the team member areas, which are normally, well, not normally, but in many cases are in the basement of the building, cinder block walls, linoleum floors, really cheap tables and chairs. And they had a very high turnover rate at this particular hotel, which was a Hilton. And they figured out that by making the break room nicer, putting some art in there, having thoughtful furniture that looks good together, there's a color scheme, that they reduced their turnover rate by 30%. And they also calculated that the cost for retraining somebody was about $25,000, even if it was just a housekeeper. So there's a lot of value in that. And I don't know that, I don't know if other companies think that it's just a bottom line thing. Well, we've got to give a free lunch on Friday, or we've got to do something like this, and that it's cost. it's not a cost, it's an investment in your employees. And I think it's a large reason why at least the people on my team and the people that I interact with on other teams, brand teams, on the Motto team, on the Tempo team, everybody's just really nice to be with. Everybody appears to be happy in their job. They seem to appreciate it. And they really just want to be there. And as I said, having worked a lot of other places, I am continually reminded of what a good job Hilton does about always thinking of ways to make employees' lives better.
And I do get the feeling, just not just from what you're saying also, but just things that I read and just other anecdotes and conversations with people, that it really does come from the top down. And I think I've met Chris, I don't know, once or twice, but it was just a handshake. I've never really spoken to him. But again, all the things that you're saying, it's just like, again, top down, it's infectious. It's an it is an investment. And also I'm curious, you know, when you were describing that break room, I can't tell, I've been in hundreds of hotels and looked at and you know, you go to the break room when you're in the back of house, and I can't tell you, the vast majority of them are just terrible. And like, if you're treating your teammates this way, how can you expect them to treat guests a different way? And actually that made me think, was Hilton the first one to coin, instead of, or switch the term or the nomenclature, instead of back of house, it became heart of house?
Well, it could be. Our initiative to address the team member break rooms was called the Heart of House Initiative. And it was about making it easy for owners to say, okay, here's 3 color schemes that you can pick from. Here's 3 furniture packages. Here's how to paint the corridors. Here's how to change lighting. And so I don't know if I'm not going to claim it, but I know it is our initiative. It is called the Heart of House, and it might have been.
I feel like I'll verify this after we're out, but like I really feel like,
yeah,
I think Hilton was the first one that I heard refer to it, and then I didn't know the details of the initiative, but it's not just words or bluster or a poster. It's everything from all the people I know and love that work at Hilton, and I do get the same feeling, and again, that goes right to culture. And if you get the culture right, you know, all the accolades come along with it, and the investment in the people. So thank you for sharing that part.
We took it a step further in lifestyle. So in Canopy, we don't have team members, we have enthusiasts, we don't have employees. So I love that. So the general manager is the chief enthusiast, and so when part of the brand descriptive was that in the team member break room, which was called the enthusiast retreat, or affectionately the ER. Which
oh my God, I love this. I didn't know that. Oh my God, keep going.
So we wrote into the standards that the owners needed to reference whatever front of house design was happening in the back of house, so that the team members, when they were having their meal, they were in an environment that was similar to what the guests were experiencing, for that very reason, that there's not this big disconnect when you go to your locker room, that our approach was that they should still feel like they are in the front of house, and that they're immersed in the environment that guests are immersed in, even when they're not on duty. And that now has bled over to Motto and Tempo as well. It's not a big investment in money, but it is a huge investment in human resources. And I think the response from all of the hotels has been really positive. Of course, unless they've worked somewhere else, they don't have anything to compare it to, but it's not that big of a deal to put an area rug in somewhere, put in nice art, upgrade the seating a little bit, put in some decent lighting. There's no reason why you can't have wall covering or nice paint. And it's not the 2x4 fluorescent lighting in a cinder block wall room. And I think it's been very successful for Canopy and all of our brands. And I think that was what also with the objectives of the Heart of House. The Heart of House was a way to retrofit existing hotels that were already open and trading to have an easy button way for an owner to apply this to the back of house. Again, we were always working with new builds, so it was easy to put these things in from the get-go. But that's always been the approach on lifestyle, is that there should be a seamless experience for the team members, whether they're on duty or not.
It is amazing if you think about design, where oftentimes many people see design as there's a massive barrier to entry or a huge cost to it. But really, going back to how you defined it, it's just about, being intentional and making people feel warm and comfortable. And you know what? Sometimes it's lighting paint and a rug, and it doesn't have to cost an arm or a leg. But the people who are entering that environment, or the heart of that house, or the heart of any house, or the hearth of anything, they pick up on it. They feel that effort is being made.
Yeah, whether or not they consciously recognize it, but you certainly recognize it if you go beyond a door and it's a stark, completely different environment, versus one that you just feel like you've just gone to a different part of the hotel that guests can't go to. So I think it's a really positive investment that speaks to the way that Hilton thinks about all employees, whether they're in the corporate office or they're on property.
As we start, we've looked back on everything, on like your journey and where you've come, and all the great initiatives, and to be a part of the growth of Hilton and also Canopy and the other lifestyle brands. As you're kind of taking today, looking forward, what's exciting you most about the future right now from your perspective?
So it's kind of interesting. Canopy, we have one more hotel to open this year, which is Toronto, which is going to be spectacular. It's really a beautiful, beautiful property. That is the last hotel that's in the current, I'm not going to say pipeline, but it was in the existing pipeline before the last 2 years happened. We're about to start several new projects, so there's a bit of a gap. So the Canopy focus now, if you go to the website and look at the development problem, it's all happening in Europe and Africa until we start to ramp back up. My big excitement now is doing the similar thing for Tempo, which was launched in early 20, and bringing that whole lifestyle brand in that's geared to a different audience, using lessons learned that we did on Canopy, not necessarily specific ones about things, but just the approach to launching a brand. And I think that for me, for launching Canopy, then Motto, and now Tempo, and the pipeline for Tempo is really remarkable. We'll have our first one open in your neighborhood early next year or mid next year, and then we have two more that are going. Nashville is under construction. Del Mar is just about ready to start construction. Louisville has started construction. So there's that gap of the last 2 years where Canopy finished, and now Tempo is kind of stepping in to take that place. And then the domestic canopies will start to pick up again in another, we'll start to have more focus on those. But right now, I think we've got upwards of 30 projects that we are or will be working on. And many of them were ones that went on hold that are now resurfacing. But there's a lot of interest in Tempo, and so it's really exciting to ride that wave, which is slightly different than Canopy, but as I said, borrowing from a lot of the lessons we learned in how to launch a brand. But Tempo is really designed towards a different audience and a different mindset of travelers, like we talked about with what defines lifestyle. Well, what is who's your customer? Mm-hmm. And when launching a new brand, people spend a lot of time digging into, all right, well, what kind of traveler are we trying to, is this a young business person? Are these young vacationers? And so there's a lot of effort that was spent by lots of different consultants to really define who we're designing for, how much do they make, what brands are important to them, fitness is really important to them, healthy eating, healthy living is important. How can we help those people that are dedicated to lots of aspects of their life that are important to them that are not work related? How do we help them maintain that while they're traveling? And so that's been very interesting to see all of the work that went in to define that. And then, okay, now we know who we're defining for. What are we going to design and give them? And how much flexibility do we need to maintain in it while maintaining a thread of consistency between each property, so that when you check into a Tempo in California, you're able to have the same experience from service and accommodations, but your hotel nor your room should look the same as it did. New York City shouldn't look like Los Angeles. There are two different, so it's building that into it, but also doing it in an economical way that owners that respond to what the owners have to spend and where we're putting these hotels.
It's been proven time and time again that if a company, large or small, can create a well thought out brand, and then they have a brand, it drives so much value for all of the stakeholders. And branding is like, I'm just awestruck every time I see a new brand come out that has legs and goes. What do you think the biggest lesson learned in launching one brand and then bringing it over to another it impacted you the most? Like, if you could say, oh, this is what I really learned in launching a brand, and this is what I'm going to bring carrying forward.
Well, when I started with Canopy, I didn't have anything to compare it to. So we were designing around a certain traveler, business traveler, a vacation traveler, and decidedly because of where where the hotel was going to be priced, they were geared towards an audience that had X amount of money to spend on this, whether or not they were there for business, pleasure, or whatever it happened to be. So, and Canopy obviously sits higher on our brand stack than Tempo does. So taking those same sensibilities and demographics and the definers of that demographic and building things into Tempo that are done in a different way than were done for Canopy, because we're the travelers that we're courting in Tempo are very health conscious. So we've aligned with Bluestone Lane. So they're doing they're partnering us for F&B. We've got a great fitness center. We've put some equipment in fitness centers. It's not just treadmills anymore. We've got different kinds of workout equipment. We're, of course, got Peloton, Theragun, other things that are much more, that are wellness focused above and beyond what you'd normally see in a quote unquote fitness center, which are usually ellipticals, treadmills, and a stretching area. So again, seeing that, identifying that aspect of importance for the guest is wellness. They want to be able to work out in a similar way than they do at home, and not necessarily having to go to the gym down the street. Or yes, oh yeah, there's a Gold's Gym. It's 10 minutes away. You can catch an Uber. That's not what we're trying to do. And so filtered water on every floor, again, trying to reduce the usage with water bottles, doing bulk amenities in the showers and things that are important, sustainability things things that provide a good night's sleep, that give them a place to work. We not only have a dry vanity, but we also have a work desk in the living
Good.
room for you. So you'll be very, very happy.
Sold.
Yeah. Focusing on the shower. So we've done some things in reimagining of a standard guest room that are geared towards how this particular traveler travels and wants their day to go. So we've done it. So launching 2 different brands that have a different customer, and then Motto was it has kind of a blending of sensibilities between Canopy and Tempo, but their big focus is that they are smaller rooms. So we've made a very, very efficient room. We've done 4 different types of rooms that connect, so that Motto's focus is really being in the very best location in a city. Motto Chelsea just opened earlier this year, and we have one at Times Square that's in the works also. So it's they're in great locations, and it's about having a comfortable room, but not necessarily having a big room, because those travelers are more interested in going out and seeing the city. They want to be in a good location, and the room it's not secondary, but the size is less important. And because we have different types of rooms that all connect, and now you can book those connecting rooms online. So we have a room that has a Murphy bed, so it can be your entertainment area. In the Murphy bed can be up, and you can have that connect to 2 rooms on either side where there's a queen bed or there's bunk beds. So it allows families or groups that want to travel together to have this kind of cooperative space that they can use when they are in the rooms, but then it's in a great location. It's got great coffee and nice things to eat, but it's about the location.
And then if you think about at Hilton in particular, or actually any large company, but let's just think about Hilton in launching a new brand, where do you find out who, like, from where within Hilton does this demographic or psychographic or target customer or target guest come from?
There are people much smarter than me higher up that are evaluating our brands, our demographics, and they're really always looking for a white space in our own enterprise. So there's a new brand that you'll see coming out, one, probably 2 focused service brands coming out in the future, because we've identified internally within our own company that there's an underserviced market segment. And so
Awesome.
We'll pivot to and I will say that is the one thing that Kristen said has always been pretty passionate about, is that he's always said it's better for us to grow these brands on our own versus buying another brand, and trying to integrate it, because if it's not a good fit, then you can spend a lot of time trying to fix somebody else's problems, and you can inherit stuff that you may not know. So it's always been his approach is, let's just grow them ourselves. And so there's a little bit longer lead up to that, because it does take the research of, all right, well, who are we designing for? What do the owners want out of this? What do the customers want out of this? How are we going to marry those two? And how are we going to do it in a way that is different than the brands that surround it? So we don't ever want to cannibalize our own. There's no growth in pulling a customer from Hilton Garden Inn over to Hampton or whatever it is. If you're moving them within it, if you're going to build something new, the objective is to attract new customers to Hilton that then become, as you noted, a loyal Hilton customer, that as your travel needs and your budget change, you have a place to go within our brand stack, and you can slowly move up and move into different categories. You suddenly have a family and you want to do extended stay, and a Homewood Suites is more better for you than a Hampton Inn or something. So we're trying to not be all things for all people, but to offer brands that are specific in their customer demographic.
Yeah, earlier, I forgot exactly what we were talking about. You mentioned that something that excited you was it's like a clean sheet of paper. I wrote down tabula rasa, like a clean slate. And then to hear the people that are smarter than all of us up there identifying where this new white space is, that then we can kind of build. And I've always found in everything I do, whenever I feel fully in control of like what's going on around me and everything is where it needs to be, and I have that clean white space, or the clean it could be something as simple as an inbox or a huge clean whiteboard. It's like the ultimate creativity to really build something and get to that brand. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that.
And what's also interesting is when those brands then want to go elsewhere in the world, everything that we build usually starts in North America. And then, okay, well, if it's going to go to Central America and Cala, what are the cultural norms that we may need to address in a different way to make that brand as applicable in lifestyle there. And same thing with China or Europe or Africa. There's always you have to be aware of, and because we're in all over the world, we're already aware of those things, but things that would resonate with you or I here may not in Mexico City. And so, but there's a core element of it that would work in Mexico City, but it's the tweaking to make sure that it's appropriate and as on brand for that particular country as it can be.
I love it. I mean, it all sounds so exciting, and the growth and the vision, and just, I don't know, just being such a great place to work. I'm really excited to see where you're going. So now I have a question where we'll go back in time to you're getting in your first getting your desk at the University of Southern California in the School of Architecture. I can't remember the name of the building anymore.
Harris Hall.
There we go. So you're getting into Harris Hall. You're there. You're getting your drafting table and your brush and your rulers and your straight edges, everything all together. But then the Barry I'm talking to right now, teleports back to the younger version of yourself. What advice do you have for yourself?
Stick it out. It will get better. It will get better. You talk. Yeah, it's a great analogy. It's almost like you're reaching back in time with your hand to either give a pat on the back or say, those long nights you mentioned, long nights until 4 a.m. drafting or whatever it is. And I didn't have to get up at 4:30 to go rowing, but you had to get up that early because there's no water nearby. So you had to go to the beach somewhere. So you had a.
We went down to the LA harbor where all of the all those container ships are all backed up, and where they come and get offloaded. We would row next to those things. It was disgusting. I saw dead bodies. The water was gross. It was gnarly, but we'd have to get up early to go down to San Pedro.
Yeah. So I think that's what I've realized is, when you're in the midst of it, you can be pretty myopic about, it's this and this is horrible and I'm late and I don't see how this is going to work out. And I've got another final on some other day. But, my other mantra is that things always work out, even when you don't think they are. And sometimes it takes not weeks or days, but it takes years for it to work out. But, if I hadn't gone through all of the things that I had, the good and what I thought was bad at the time, I wouldn't be here. I think all of those things lead us to where we are. And they form our opinions, they form our personality, they give us insights on how to work with people and how to get through things. So, there's no bad experiences. They're just experiences that you think are bad at the time, but you can always pull something from them later in life.
Yeah.
And if they were a part of the dots that bring you to where I am, then I can't be upset with them or push them away, because they were all part of what it took to get here. So
and in some small part of that, let's bring it all right back to Ida Hallinan,
Mrs. Madrigal
and Mrs. Madrigal and Beechwood Canyon. So Barry, how can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out?
It's a very, very highly secretive email address. It's barry.sullivan@Hilton. So there, I'm welcome to take any emails from anybody.
Great. And then we'll also put your link in there. And then I think I'll put some information of Hilton up there in the liner notes as well, so they can find out what's going on that way as well.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well. So
we'll put it all in there.
If anybody's reaching out to me on LinkedIn, please reference this, because I get lots of invites from all over the world from people that I don't know. So if it's specific about this conversation, if they can connect that dot in it, that would be helpful, because it might be the difference between accepting or not.
Right. Well, Barry, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm grateful for our time together, and this has just been a wonderfully enjoyable and educational conversone for me. So thank you.
And for me too. I'm happy to do it, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
That's what everyone says. Oh,
not on your part, on my part. I was just and you and I know the little bit of logistics we went through before this all started. So
yeah.
Anyway, I'm happy to help. It's always nice to see you, and I'll look forward to seeing you in person before too long.
Perfect. Yeah, I should be down there pretty soon. And also, most importantly, well, not necessarily most importantly, but very much importantly, thanking our listeners, because this is just all growing by word of mouth. So if this conversation has evolved your idea on what hospitality is and how the built environment can help convey hospitality to others, please pass it along to a friend. We're growing every single week, and it's really exciting, and it's all not possible without you. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Thanks very much, Dan.